Meals.
Speaking of meals, the food on Pirate Island isn't so good, even if you bring your own.
Breakfast. Oatmeal in the field. Slept really well. It was comfortable. The wind gods that kept away for a while. They held the winds back.
Not for long. As soon as we get to work, Pirate Island's brutal winds stop us dead in our tracks.
There is a constant wind. The wind comes every afternoon here on the island, very strong.
The sand is like talcum powder. It's going to get in everything.
If you like sand in your eye, your ears, you like to eat sand. It's the place. Sand is everywhere. It's in our gear, it's in our mummies.
And probably places we don't even want to think about.
We still need to construct some kind of a wind barrier, sand barrier.
We need to protect the equipment and the mummies. An old Navy tent should help.
We're trying to decide where to put the tent over this burial so we can set up the X-ray and the endoscopy equipment.
And mummy number 3 has just been dug up.
Hopefully our endoscope and X-rays will provide forensic evidence to help us figure out who these mummies were.
Okay.
We're still hot on the trail of any proof that they might have been pirates.
Just kind of hold on to it as it comes out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay.
¡Qué bueno!
After several X-rays, Jerry notices a problem in the mummy's back.
There's some spurring on his thoracic spine. It looks like there's some sclerotic changes at the ends of the other vertebrae. Right there.
Sclerotic change is a fancy term for tissue that becomes more dense and is brought on by repetitive motion. This would have caused arthritis, degeneration of the joint, and it's not just in his back.
I think he has sore elbow. So here's the elbow joint.
See this black area? More dense, damaged tissue. His elbow was inflamed many times in his life. The shoulder shows similar problems.
See how hot that is there, that black part? That's wear and tear, like arthritis. He's been using that shoulder quite a bit. A lot of work the sailors did is pulling, rowing, fighting, pirates.
He was a hard worker, that's for sure. Whether it was from the pirate lifestyle or some other cause, we can't be sure right now. One more mummy. One more chance to find a pirate. Into the tent.
His head is turned to the side, and he's facing me, and he seems only to be wrapped in this single canvas layer. I can see his teeth and lips.
There's something in there. I need one of Jerry's X-rays to figure out what.
I think the most interesting finding here is what appears to be a metal medallion. But I think while we got it all set up, the endoscope's got to go in at the angle of the mandible on the side toward us.
I think I found it.
You can see it right there. That's it. See? There está. Yep.
Jerry's right on. It looks like a medallion. But what does it mean? A strange coincidence unfolds. The medallion we find on the mummy looks like one Mappy wears around her neck. What will they tell us about our mummy?
X-ray. Es igual.
As Jose brushes hundreds of years of sand away, it becomes apparent that the medallion from the mummy bears the same religious iconography as Mappy's.
It looks the same.
There are 12 stars on it. ¿Qué represente? There's 12 apostles. On the back side of the medallion are 2 sacred hearts. It's one sacred heart of Jesus, one sacred heart of Mary.
But there's more to the story.
The date on the medallion is 1830.
However, 1830 is not the year the medallion was made. It was the date the Virgin Mary supposedly appeared to the Catholic saint Catherine Labour and told her to make the medallion.
The first one was struck in 1832 in France. They were thought to have miraculous healing and protective powers. Many Catholics still wear them today. Finding the medallion in the burial tells us a lot. We can now say with complete certainty that this mummy is not one of the 17th century pirates we're looking for.
So who could he be? People have inhabited and used this island for many reasons over the years. At the end of the 18th century and beginning of the 19th century, Peru fought Spain for independence. They finally won it in 1821, though the Spanish didn't give up easily.
Many slain soldiers from both sides were buried in San Lorenzo cemeteries.
But these cemeteries, along with other burial sites, have been lost to history because of the ever-shifting sands and shifting uses of the island. Pirate Island wasn't just for pirates. The island has a wealth of natural resources.
Carbon, quartz, and chalk were all mined here to build huge structures in Lima, such as the great Fort Royal Felipe and the main plaza. Rocks weren't the only valuable export, though. The desert island is awash with guano, the Spanish term for, well, bird poop.
Guano makes a great fertilizer. In fact, the export of tons of guano triggered an economic boom in Peru in the mid-1800s. San Lorenzo drew many guano and mine laborers to her shores.
But they didn't come alone. Their families lived and died with them.
We've moved down from the site we were working at earlier. We're down here now, and in this particular grave, there are 3 small coffins.
Babies, and one of them is remarkably well preserved.
Looks like she's buried in her christening dress.
The face is a little pushed down, but you can almost see an expression on there. When we see a child, it's very human, you know.
This is by far the most elaborate burial we've seen. There are flowers by the feet. They appear to be roses. There are several different types of fabric that are wrapped around the baby. And there are a couple of candles along the left side.
This child was buried with love and with a clue.
Here we go. These 2 tobacco boxes have a date on them.
November, maybe 15, 1879. This does not necessarily mean it's the date that this child was buried, but certainly the child could not have been buried before that date.
1879, quite possibly a miner's daughter. However, at this time, the island also served as a quarantine station.
She may have journeyed from afar only to die on San Lorenzo's shores.
Throughout the 19th century, travelers with visible symptoms of disease were forced to wait on San Lorenzo, where they either recovered and carried on their journeys or died and were buried in the sand.
Cholera, another gastrointestinal nightmare, was a big killer.
Cholera is associated with what we call rice water diarrhea. There's no blood. It just looks like after you get rid of the stool, you're just pouring out this stuff that looks like rice water. And you can take somebody and just force fluids into him and turn him around in a matter of hours so that they'll recover. In the old days, they didn't understand this at all. And not only that, they didn't have good fluids to force into people, so they were using the local fluids that were also contaminated with the cholera bacteria.
At its worst, cholera is one of the most rapidly fatal illnesses ever known to man. Victims can die within hours.
Luckily, unlike the victims buried on Pirate Island, we know now how to treat these conditions. Antibiotics and especially hydration do the trick.
Marvin Cooper has some good advice for modern-day travelers.
Absolutely, without a doubt, no fresh vegetables, no ice, no local water. We would always rather you peeled your own oranges, you peeled your own bananas. If you can't cook it or boil it or peel it, leave it.
Sometimes hard advice to follow today, and something these people weren't aware of.
We found some sick people, but our pirate hunt hasn't turned up any confirmed pirates just yet.
Remember our first mummy? The one we named Blackbeard? The analysis is now in, and Andrew Bolton has the results. He's an associate curator from the Costume Institute at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City.
Given the fact that the mum is wearing trousers, it seems to indicate that it's actually post-1800. Trousers became fashionable about 1810. Previously they wore breeches or pantaloons. And then if you look at the actual flies of the trousers, which are a single button-down fly, again it suggests it's a mid-19th century date. Before that they would have had a front-fastening flap. And also the shirt, which has a very turned-down collar, would seem to suggest it was also late 19th century. So I think that the date of the mummy is between 1850 to about 1910, and I don't think it's a pirate.
So, he's not a pirate.
Neither is he.
She certainly isn't.
Pirates or not, these sands are finally revealing their buried treasures.
This place is remarkable. It's been very exciting to be here. And just now, this is at the very beginning, the tip of the iceberg. So much more information will come out of this island.